Episode 6, House of the Dragon, premiered almost a week ago. Since then, we've had a lot of interesting takes on how Alicent Hightower and Rhaenyra Targaryen fare as mothers. And by interesting, I mean completely unfair. So I guess potential spoilers for anyone who has not read Fire and Blood or isn't caught up with the show. These takes basically revolve around this idea that Rhaenyra is a wonderful mother and that Alicent is basically Cersei 2.0. No, in fact, she is worse than Cersei Lannister, because at least according to them, Cersei generally only wanted the best for her children. Yet, they've decided to rewrite fandom history where the popular idea was that Cersei only cared about her children because she saw them as extensions of her and Jaime, and that they promised her power. I mean, it's not as though Cersei rejected Ned's offer of mercy just so she could keep Joffrey on the throne and therefore endangering his life in the process. But anyway, I'm making this video because I think there is some very important context that is being forgotten at best or trivialized at worst. Unlike Rhaenyra, Alicent was never given the option of choosing her own husband. Now, she's obviously not unique in that, unfortunately, but it is important to take in consideration. She was only 15 or 16 when she married someone who was her father's age. Now, I know some of you like to accuse Alicent of seducing the king, and all I can say in response is that you are trash for thinking that. I'm not even going to bother being polite about it, because it's the truth. Victim blaming is never okay. Like, even your girl Rhaenyra is able to recognize eventually that Alicent did not ask for the marriage, and that if she had a choice, she would never have married Rhaenyra's father. So anyway, you basically have this 15 to 16-year-old being pushed into a marriage and becoming queen, which, yay, I guess. And based on episode 3, it seems like she got pregnant very quickly after marrying him, which I'm sure Otto was fucking overjoyed about. And then at the time of Aegon's first birthday, which is where episode 3 takes place, she's already heavily pregnant again with Helena. Like, it looks like she's pretty close to giving birth. And when it comes to these children, at least Aegon and Helena, they were products of marital rape. Now, I know some people will try to argue against this and say that we shouldn't apply modern sensibilities to this world. And to that, I say, well, at least then be fucking consistent before you then try to justify the nasty child marriages and accept that Rhaenyra's children actually being bastards would be a problem to the succession. But anyway, that scene in episode 4, which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, is very clear on that. So this is obviously going to create very complicated feelings Alicent towards her children. I've seen some people argue that she doesn't love them, and quite frankly, even if that were true, which it's not, she would be absolutely fucking justified in her feelings. Obviously, children conceived of rape are not monsters. They are human beings, but the people who birth them are not monsters if they fail to bond with or love these children. Because the sad truth is, these children only exist because of their trauma. There's also the fact that, based on the scenes that I've seen people use for their takes, Alicent is barely 20 versus Rhaenyra, who is in their 30s. So obviously there's going to be differences in maturity. But I think what these people are failing to recognize the most with regards to Alicent in those scenes is that she might be dealing with some form of postpartum disorder. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but truthfully to me, Alicent Red is someone who might have benefited from talking to someone about her feelings, because it looks like she's struggling. But the importance of this point is that someone struggling with postpartum disorder does not make them a terrible mother. And I just want to point out that there is every possibility that Rhaenyra also struggled with similar feelings when she had her first 2 children. We just didn't see it. Anyway, let's talk about Rhaenyra. So basically, she did have an opportunity to choose her own husband, which Alicent, by the way, encouraged Viserys to allow. But, stuff happened, and Viserys was like, well, you gotta marry Laenor. Now, obviously, they weren't each other's first choice, but Rhaenyra had a lot more power and agency in her situation compared to Alicent. She and Laenor agreed that they would do their duty and they would have an heir and a spare, and then do their own thing. Alicent was never given that option. If Alicent was accused of being unfaithful, she could be in danger of being executed. It's why Cersei tries to frame Margaery. One of Maegor the Cruel's wives was accused of the same thing and died horribly because of it. Heck, just to emphasize how dangerous being accused of such a thing is, Alice Haraway, who was the wife in question, her whole family was wiped out by Maegor the Cruel. Furthermore, Laenor is actually around Rhaenyra's age, so you don't have a teenage girl being forced to marry a almost 40-year-old man, so it's a completely different dynamic. But anyway, it's one thing to have intentions and another to actually follow through. Because episode 6, Rhaenyra has had 3 baby boys, beautiful boys, and none of them are Laenor's. Because A, there's no doubt in my mind that Laenor and Rhaenyra haven't slept together in years, and B, the show isn't ambiguous on who the father is. It's Harwin. Like in Fire and Blood, it's just rumours, but the show decided to confirm it. Anyway, I think Rhaenyra and Laenor did consummate their marriage, and they did try a couple times, but they just never conceived, and not because Laenor was infertile or anything like I've seen people speculate, just that these things can take time, and that understandably Laenor felt like he couldn't continue, or he just didn't want to. So around this time, Rhaenyra and Harwin slept together for the first time, because, there's this growing attraction, and obviously Laenor won't care, and I think Rhaenyra actually fell pregnant that first time with Harwin. Like, that's my little headcanon. So anyway, Rhaenyra would have realised that Harwin was the father. Now, for whatever reason, she continued the pregnancy. That was the choice she freely made, and it's the same thing with Joffrey and Lucerys. Alicent never got that. When she fell pregnant, she had to continue, because her feelings didn't matter. So, ultimately, based on this, I just don't think these takes are fair at all, because the reality is, if the situation had been reversed, I think Rhaenyra would struggle similarly, and that's not something she or Alicent should be condemned for. And before I finish, I just want to say that I think it's very funny that for a fandom who likes to celebrate certain characters for being feminists, newsflash, feudalism is incompatible with the concept of feminism. You're basically pushing this idea that the worth of a woman should be tied up in how they measure up as a mother. Is very problematic. Now, to be fair, this may not be done consciously, but I do think it's an interesting point to consider about the hypocrisy that thrives within this fandom. So anyway, that's my perspective. Obviously, there's a lot more that I can cover on this topic, but I didn't want to make this video too long. So thanks for listening. Please feel free to comment. Just don't be freaks about it.